Republican presidential hopefuls are making their final pitch to voters in Iowa ahead of Monday's state caucuses, which officially kick off the election season. And while the race is heating up, the weather is not. Candidates have had to brave bitterly cold and record low temperatures that have already forced them to cancel some events and get creative with others. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe has been braving the weather, but now looks inside. Good for him. Ed, good morning to you.
Dana, we pulled rank this morning. Good to see you. We are just hours away from the start of the 2024 campaign when a relatively small group of Americans gets the process started for the entire country. The caucuses are well known to Iowans, about as well known as cornfields, the famous state fair, the Field of Dreams, and frigid temperatures in January. But it's a mysterious tradition to the rest of us, so let's explain.
It's time for Iowa to make up its mind.
I hope people pay attention and go out and caucus. It's extremely important.
If you don't know there's a caucus coming up in Iowa, you're living under a rock.
Unlike a primary, when polls are open for several hours, or states that allow absentee ballots, the Iowa Republican caucus requires mandatory in-person attendance, 7 p.m. Monday night.
This caucus thing is cool because for a minute, for an hour on Monday night, folks get to come out, and even if they're undecided, they should come out and hear people represent the candidates.
There are about 1,600 individual caucuses held statewide. Only those who register as Republicans can participate.
The only candidate who can beat Joe Biden.
First up, someone speaks on behalf of each candidate. Then, votes are cast on secret paper ballots.
1, 2, 3.
And counted in front of the crowd. Final results are reported to the state party and the world.
Breaking news from Iowa. CBS News projects that Ted Cruz has won the Republican caucuses.
Just 186,000 people participated in the last competitive GOP caucus in 2016, a third of the state's registered Republicans. This tiny group of Americans, 0.0005% of the nation, plays an outsized role in picking a president.
Anyone caucused last time?
In Mason City, the town that inspired The Music Man, Julie Billings is trying to avoid trouble by rehearsing. She walked 40 fellow Republicans through a mock caucus earlier this week.
Guys, order.
One goal is to ensure the number of votes cast matches the number of people in the room.
Do you trust this process?
Yes. There's checks and balances in place. Paper ballots are hands down the best way to go.
And the idea that you all have to be there at the same time versus being able to vote all day long.
They're my neighbors, but they could be clear on the other side of the precinct, and I never see them. And it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to meet those others in your precinct.
Watch what happens. You be the eyes of the person counting. There's accountability there.
Iowa Republicans have a pretty bad track record of picking their party's eventual nominee. Not since 2000, when George W. Bush harvested a victory here, did Iowa Republicans get it right.
Do you all appreciate that in these small rooms, in this relatively small state, you begin a process to pick what we long considered to be the leader of the free world? Does it ever maybe cross your mind that that is a really awesome responsibility?
You know, this at the very base level, and I think a lot of people up until the last several years didn't appreciate how important this is.
But nobody gave me a good answer as to why Iowa should go first.
It's just somebody's got to be first. Why not us?
Are you going to get 23 million people in Florida to see all the candidates? This is 3 million people.
We've never tried it. That's my point.
They can get in their car.
They might.
These candidates run around and they can get in their car and they can see a candidate. They will talk to them face to face. They have that opportunity. I don't think you can do that in a state like Texas. It's too big, too many people.
Our thanks to our friends in Mason City. But just to reiterate, only 186,000 registered Republicans in this state participated last time, less than a third of the state's registered Republicans. And yesterday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, of course, one of the contenders, said that because of the weather now, his team anticipates turnout could be as low as 130,000 Iowa Republicans, guys, which just shows you, again, how small this group of voters is and how incredibly influential they are as the country begins picking a president.
There are pros and cons to the process, as you point out, Ed, but the Democrats, and this isn't really news because they don't have a competitive primary this year, but they've ditched the caucuses. Is there any movement, or how much movement is there among Republicans to move on from this system?
So we asked about that, and for now, they're sticking with it, believing that this is the best way for at least people in this state to pick a president, in part because it allows people to gather in their own community, cast that paper ballot, and watch it get counted into the system by someone in the room who then reports the results into this room in Des Moines, where the results will be announced on Monday night. But given the weather and the really cold temperatures, if the turnout is low and the candidates complain that maybe if things had been opened up all day long, things would have been different, suspect that there could be conversation about it going forward. We'll see.
Don't underestimate the Iowans in that cold.
There it is.
Don't underestimate.
You know, you've lived there. An historic process. Thank you so much, Ed. Well, CBS News will have complete coverage of the Iowa caucuses this Monday night, and you can stream continually live coverage on the free CBS News app.